Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of The Push with Nick and KP. I'm KP. Nick is here with me in attendance once again, as we are today going to be going through our review of Friday Night SmackDown from a couple of nights ago as of recording, 7th of March, the first episode after the Elimination Chamber event that took place last weekend. Lots to talk about, lots to discuss, and lots happened on this show, so let's begin with the first segment of the night, which would see Randy Orton come out and grace his presence to the WWE Universe. He would head to the ring, and he would basically refer to everything that's happened in the recent history between himself and Kevin Owens. He'd reference a number of people in this one, including the likes of Cody Rhodes and Sami Zayn, and basically just highlighting how dangerous Kevin Owens actually is. Randy Orton clearly out for vengeance here, clearly wants some revenge on Kevin Owens. The attack after the match at Elimination Chamber between Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. Yeah, that attack from Orton wasn't quite enough, and he basically is just looking to cement on that and to continue to build off of that. But yeah, he's back with a vengeance, and he wants Kevin Owens. Basically, is the general the consensus of this promo here. And yeah, I think it's pretty much what we all expected. Randy Orton now back. They'll obviously build towards a potential match at WrestleMania. I would assume that's where this is going. And yeah, I got not an awful lot to say about this. I do know there's quite a lot of segments to go through here. But yeah, it looks pretty set and done. We're going to have Randy and Kevin going into a WrestleMania build right about now. So very, very keen to see this one play out. And maybe you got some more to say about that one in a little bit, Nick. Going on to the first match of the night, I had it down as Pretty Deadly defeating Los Garza and MCMG. Maybe I've got my matches mixed up around here or something. But yeah, Pretty Deadly would beat Los Garza and Motor City Machine Guns to become the number one contenders for WWE Tag Team Championships. It was announced just before this match took place from Nick Aldis that the Street Profits will be going up against DIY next week on SmackDown for the tag team titles. Then this triple threat match would determine who would be the number one contenders afterwards, possibly going into WrestleMania. Pretty Deadly would win this one. I think that this was an absolutely perfect win for Pretty Deadly. They've been so impressive recently in terms of like what they've been achieving. I think they've sort of like adjusted their characters to make them a little more likable. They've obviously gone on that sort of, I don't know if it's really a face turn, but it's kind of does feel like one. They're not quite so like in your face heel as they used to be. But now they've seemed to be getting a lot more love and adoration from the WWE Universe, which is great for me personally. I'm a big Pretty Deadly fan, have been for a long time. But yeah, I think it's great to see they're getting a much bigger reception now, and they've got a big opportunity here, a big tag team championship match, whenever that's going to take place. Had a feeling there'd be like a multi-tag match at WrestleMania. So I'm not sure what's going to happen, going forward here between maybe Street Profits and DIY next week, and then going into Pretty Deadly's match whenever that's going to take place as well. But yeah, I don't know. That's quite interesting to look at. But this match was itself was really, really fun. Thought all three teams really showed up here, and Motor City always looking tremendous when they get into the ring. Lost Guards are getting a little bit more traction. Yeah, Pretty Deadly looking solid as they have been for a long time now. So yeah, the tag team division truly is special on SmackDown compared to Monday Night Raws. And yeah, this was just another display of how good the tag teams really can be once they're put in their situation. So then we went over into our next match of the night, which would be a one-on-one contest between Tiffany Stratton and Piper Niven, the WWE Women's Champion, getting another chance to compete in a SmackDown ring as she heads into her match at WrestleMania against Charlotte Flair, defending against the Women's Royal Rumble winner for 2025. Stratton would dispatch of Piper Niven pretty quickly. It wouldn't be a long match by any means necessary, but it would be an opportunity for Tiffany to basically just keep on building some momentum. Going into WrestleMania, obviously at the back of her win at Elimination Chamber alongside Trish Stratus against Nia Jax and Candice LeRae. Yeah, this is just a momentum builder for Tiffany Stratton. A quick one just to put Piper Niven away, maybe affecting something later on in the night that we'll get talking about a little bit later on. But after the contest would end here in a pretty quick expected result here, you're not going to have Tiffany lose to Piper Niven on the build to WrestleMania. You'd have Charlotte Flair storm the ring and attack Tiffany Stratton, locking in the figure eight, her renowned signature maneuver. And I think Charlotte Flair, she's playing this very, very smart. Every single time that Charlotte Flair and Tiffany Stratton are in the ring, it seems to be Charlotte standing over Tiff at the end of the segment. So it seems to be very one-sided between those two. in regards to the build going into WrestleMania, and we know how that works in the past. You have a very one-sided feud from one person, and then ultimately the other person wins. We still have a few weeks though. We still got like 5 or so weeks, I think, remaining still after this. So yeah, there's a lot of time, for the game to change, for momentum to shift. So yeah, maybe for Tiffany Stratton to learn that Charlotte Flair is lurking and looming, and maybe she can be prepared for another attack or assault later on. But yeah, Charlotte continuing to get in the face of Tiffany and stand tall at the end of the segment seems to be the status quo at the moment. We would then go into our next segment of the night, which would be a very emotional segment, very emotional promo. Bianca Belair would come out here and she would basically call out Naomi, saying that she is back there. She wants answers, so come on here now and explain what's going on. Naomi would come on out basically straight away, and both these women wearing black. You could say maybe they're in a case of mourning or something, perhaps, but yeah, they would have a very emotional back and forth. Naomi would essentially just duck Bianca's questions about whether she attacked Jade a couple of times, 2 or 3 times. It was quite a regular occurrence. And eventually, Bianca would just essentially stress to Naomi how important it was that she needs to have an answer to this. Naomi literally shedding a couple of tears before saying that she did attack Jade Cargill, ultimately revealing that it was her behind the assault a long time ago. I think a lot of people did expect this to be the case, but this particular promo here was quite great. I loved the way that these two women went about it. It was extremely emotional. Both women just absolutely laying everything on the line here, especially Bianca Belair, showcasing, how stressful it was for her, the last week or so. Obviously with the attack of Jade Cargill during that Elimination Chamber match on Naomi. It was it was quite the eye opener for Bianca, and everything sort of like come to life immediately. But this was a brilliant segment. I really, really did enjoy it. It got to a point where after Naomi had told Bianca that she did attack Jade, Bianca would start heading up the ramp, and Naomi would basically start getting a little bit more assertive the way that she was speaking, a little bit more desperate, and she would eventually say to Bianca that she's an ungrateful bitch, and Bianca would just sort of like stop in her tracks, maybe sort of showing a little bit of anger, but this would correlate with Jade Cargill arriving at the arena, and Jade would walk her way down to the ring, would go past Bianca Belair after getting a nod of approval to go and do what she needs to do, and then she would lay out Naomi and hit the Jaded to stand tall above at the end of the segment. But this was a brilliant, really, really, really awesome segment between all 3 women, really, especially Bianca Belair. And then Naomi playing her part as well. But I think it's just bringing the situation to life here, and it allows Bianca to get her answers before she moves on to her WrestleMania feud going into that with Io Sky and possibly Rhea Ripley as well. So yeah, great stuff here. Loved it. The matches beforehand, especially the triple threat match, really, really liked that one. And Randy Orton and then Kevin Owens. Obviously, that build's starting to kick off with Charlotte Flair and Tiffany Stratton continuing. Nick, what did you think of these 4 segments, buddy? I know I've went on a little bit there. There was quite a lot to go through at the beginning here. But got anything else to really go through regarding these ones, or what do you think?
Yeah, the Randy Orton return, obviously good to see him back. I didn't feel like the promo itself was groundbreaking at all or anything. And kind of addressed the elephant in the room, and that he was going to make Kevin Owens pay. And so likely we'll see that through Mania. Tiffany Stratton and Piper Niven. A decent match. Obviously, Tiffany getting the win as she should. And again, Charlotte Flair coming out on top and applying the leg lock. I think I like the way your mind's working there in terms of, because I know we've addressed this in the past. It seems like ever since Charlotte has declared Tiffany her challenger, every single week we see Charlotte on top, and eventually we'd like to see that kind of change. But with the dynamic currently, in that Charlotte's a veteran and Tiffany's still very much new to newish to main roster, so maybe this is her just teaching her a lesson, and hopefully Tiffany can learn from this. I still don't love the way they backed off her character, and I feel like what made her being Tiffany Stratton. And but yeah, as you mentioned, hopefully maybe this is the way, because when she finally does figure it out, it'll be just in time for Mania. But I don't think it would hurt to give her a few instances where she's standing on top, because it's obviously been very one-sided so far, and eventually she needs to learn, just keep her head on a swivel. So yeah, hopefully we see Tiffany right the ship a little bit here. And then we have the triple threat. Yeah, Bray Dudley winning here. I think, again, anytime these guys get in the ring, it's entertaining. I don't think there's any denying that. I think out of all the teams at the moment, I feel like Pretty Deadly probably has the most momentum. It feels like they're coming out on top more than anyone else, at least to me personally. Feel free to disagree there. But yeah, it feels like when all things shake out each week, they're usually the ones on top. I think you could argue Street Profits have a lot of momentum as well, but they haven't really been in that many matches, just in terms of how they're being booked and standing tall. But yeah, and you could argue everyone has a good amount of momentum. It'll be interesting to see which team finally decides to come on top of this come Mania. But yeah, each team's looking good here, and I particularly love the Nick Aldis segment where he has the all the teams on the whiteboard and is drawing the lines as it were a crime scene or something, going back and trying to explain the chaos that is this division. That was really entertaining, and he has a good sense of humor and good delivery on that, and I thought that was pretty funny. Bianca and Naomi, yeah, we've been waiting for this for how long? Yeah, I give them credit for the emotion. That certainly wasn't lacking, and I felt like both of them, delivered on their part. In terms of where the angle is going, I still don't know that I have a clue. I think a couple things that, I think we've all heard the Naomi rumblings and that it was her. To date, I still don't think that makes a ton of sense. And it still felt like Bianca was kind of holding something back there for a minute. And maybe she still is. We still have time to tell a story here. But Naomi and Jade just doesn't seem like the match to me. Maybe just a personal preference, but also if this is all how it went out and played out, and Naomi is the heel here, it has to be a first time in a while that, granted, Naomi put Jade on the shelf, in the story for how long, but Jade has been just completely just whooped her ass 2 weeks in a row, and no fight back or anything from Naomi, which is rare in this heel face dynamic. So I still feel like we're missing parts of the story here, and I feel like Bianca's not telling us something, but we're finally getting something, and so that was our main complaint with that storyline, right? We wanted to see something develop between this storyline, and now we're getting it. So yeah, it certainly has my attention. I don't think we're quite done. So it'll be interested to see what comes next.
Yeah, I think everybody's got their own sort of like personal views, maybe opinions about like how this feud is going to play out between Naomi, Bianca, and Jade Cargill. I think mine is pretty straightforward. I think it literally is just going to be Jade and Naomi going forward, and Bianca goes over into WrestleMania for herself, for her reasons. But yeah, I guess we'll have to wait and see, right? What the build to WrestleMania brings us, and as to how things are going to play out. But yeah, you did mention a good thing about Pretty Deadly. They do tend to spend a lot of time, looking like they're coming out on top in these segments recently. I think it's sort of like I alluded to that a little bit with, they are sort of like showing up and, gaining a lot of momentum recently, which is just amazing for them. I'm so happy that they're getting pushed into that position. They started off really, really well on the main roster, had a lot of, I think, successive wins in a row. And they just sort of seemingly just got like forgotten about, essentially, like got pushed to the side, little bit parts here and there. And yeah, really, really happy to see how that one's going. But yeah, how about we move along now into what followed these particular segments. And first of all, let's begin with talking about Braun Strowman. He would have a match with Solo Sikoa coming up next. That would be a one-on-one matchup. It would end in, I don't exactly know the result here. It was either a no contest or Braun won by DQ. I've got it down as a no contest. Feel free to weigh in on that one later on, Nick, if you can. But basically, Tama Tonga would take to the ring and would attack Braun as he was covering Solo Sikoa. So you could argue it was either there. But basically, the referee would call for the match to end. And obviously the brawl would ensue then between Braun and the Bloodline. It would get to a point where Jacob Fatu would arrive down from the stage, and he would have his proper entrance. He'd have the trons going off, the music, as he would just menacingly make his way down. He would eventually arrive to Braun Strowman, and they would brawl around basically ringside and the arena. They would go into the crowd. There'd be like a section over with some production equipment like tables and whatnot, which sort of like is alluded to there in the image on the top left. And Jacob Fatu would take a big bump through through the tables and stuff. As the segment was about to end, Jacob would actually get up as Braun Strowman was basically just posing and celebrating his dominance and strength up on the crates. And as Jacob Fatu got up, it just brought everything to life about how crazy this guy is and how much like punishment he can take and still get back to his feet. But it was a pretty intense brawl. I quite liked it. It just sort of seemingly came out of nowhere from this matchup. Obviously, they've had a lot of stuff going on recently, so out of nowhere, maybe, perhaps not. But yeah, I think you get what I'm trying to say. Basically, it was a match between Solo and Braun. It turned into this. It was quite the interesting turnaround. I'm not normally a fan of when matches end in no contests and whatnot, but this was a pretty fun, quick little diversion from that matchup, and Solo just seemingly just got forgotten about, and it was all about these two men. We would then go into a street fight for the Women's United States Championship. Chelsea Green putting the title on the line against Michin. This would be the latest of their saga between the two women. I think this is like the third time they fought for the US title, which is basically the only sort of fuse we've had really from Chelsea Green with her championship. And this would be the biggest match of the lot so far. The street fight would basically go down as you'd expect, quite brutal for that most part. Weapons being involved left, right, and center. Piper Niven being involved, even though she was very, very heavily selling the effects of the match between her and Tiffany Stratton earlier in the night. And it almost looked as if Piper was completely drunk out of her face. But she sold it very, very well, I suppose. Maybe a little oversell, but you know what I mean. But yeah, she wasn't quite up to her normal abilities to defend Chelsea Green. And B-Fab would come down to the ring at some point during the match, and she would basically nullify Piper, and they would, brawl away, and just leaving Chelsea and Michin to go about their business. Michin would have Chelsea on top of a table and would go for a senton off the top and crash through Chelsea onto that table, looking to get the victory here and get the pin to win the US Championship. But as Michin hit the leg, Alba Fire would come out, and she would drag Michin out of the ring and would lay out Michin there and then. This was quite interesting because I didn't see this coming whatsoever. We last saw Alba Fire with Isla Dawn. Obviously now she's been released. I don't think we've seen her since then. So this is like her return essentially. And it seems to be like she's going to be part of the Secret Service alongside maybe Piper Niven to defend Chelsea Green in these big matches. That seems to be what they're sort of like, basically alluding to now. And I'm guessing Alba is now on Friday nights. I think last time she might have been seen on Raw. Maybe correct me if I'm wrong on that one. But either way, we've got Alba Fire now back into a position of relevancy on the main roster. But she proved to be the deciding factor here. She would hit a lovely Canadian destroyer in the ring and laying out Michin. She dragged Chelsea Green out, didn't she? Then she went to ringside and then dragged her back in and then popped her onto Michin to get the victory. So yeah, it was a completely out of nothing turn of events here from this one. But Chelsea retains the title, quite impressively done. And we've now got Alba Fire as part of the Secret Service, I suppose. We would then go into a promo with Cody Rhodes. He would basically just be talking about everything that happened at Elimination Chamber, obviously all the situation between himself and John Cena, and his actions and everything that he did, turning heel, and basically selling his soul to The Rock, going corporate, whatever you want to call it. It was quite the moment. It was crazy. We spoke about it a lot in our Elimination Chamber reactions, but the effects seemed to be parallel even now, and they will be for a long time as well going forward from here. But yeah, Cody Rhodes was basically talking about everything that took place, reference The Rock, Travis Scott, and basically just everything that happened and how he felt about it all. He basically started to build up, his moments of revenge, basically, that he wants to get back at John Cena. And he would allude to the match at WrestleMania that's going to take place between the two of them for the WWE Undisputed Championship. It was, it was basically how you'd expect Cody to respond. Very proud champion, somebody who, isn't going to take that attack lightly and is going to, fight his hardest to get back into a position where he's in control again. I think like right now, obviously with Cena being absent, it is going to be a lot of Cody Rhodes basically manually sort of building this. But I suppose when you do something that Cena did after such a long time of maybe people wanting it to happen throughout his career, maybe he's done his part to build it already. So maybe I guess now it is down to Cody to sort of like do his share, which I'm sure he'll do a decent job of as well. So yeah, this was basically just the first sort of stepping stone in order to do that, and building up the anticipation for that match at WrestleMania. We would then go into our penultimate match of the night, which would be a one-on-one contest between Drew McIntyre and Jimmy Uso. A rematch from, I think these guys had a match a couple of weeks ago where Jimmy Uso would get the victory there by surprise, rolling out McIntyre to get the win. This time, though, however, it'll be a little bit different. It would be a lot more, what I want to say, proper. It was the actual sort of match that should have took place a couple of weeks ago, if I'm not talking like story-based stuff and, not long-term booking, but like a little bit in booking in the future sort of thing. Drew McIntyre would get a win here relatively comfortably over Jimmy Uso. I think only after about like 4 or 5 minutes of this match. I think it was probably around that, maybe another couple of minutes on top, whatever. But it wasn't the longest of matchups. But yeah, Drew McIntyre getting a win. Very, very glad he's finally got a victory. And it would basically be more about what happened afterwards, because earlier in the middle of in the night, I think before this show started, Drew McIntyre would assault Damian Priest. He would lay him out. And I think Drew essentially just forgotten about that, or maybe just assumed that Damian was done for the night. Because after Drew had won, he would start to walk up the ramp. He would turn around slowly towards Jimmy Uso, signifying that maybe he was going to go back in and further add insult to injury. As he would go to walk towards the ring, Damian Priest would be there to assault Drew McIntyre. They'd get into a bit of a brawl, and Damian would lay out Drew after that matchup had ended. It looks like that's going to be the direction going to WrestleMania for these guys. We spoke about this already. I don't care for it. It's not something I'm particularly interested in. But yeah, I guess this is the way they're going, and we just gotta wait for it to end, I suppose. Yeah, I don't know. I just can't show hype for this one. I struggle to really get invested in it. And then we go into our main event. This would be for the United States Championship, the men's United States title. LA Knight would challenge Shinsuke Nakamura in a rematch from Survivor Series, where Shinsuke would actually defeat LA Knight and would win the US title back then. This match, Shinsuke has been sort of a bit, not AWOL, but like hiding in the shadows is what I think is the term that we've been dealing with recently. LA Knight would finally get his opportunity to take on Shinsuke Nakamura. And he would completely take that opportunity. It'd be quite an interesting finish, actually, here with this one. Shinsuke would be rallying here. He'd get in a position where he'd look to hit the poison mist. He'd actually hit Charles Robinson instead. LA Knight would lay out Shinsuke Nakamura shortly afterwards by hitting the BFT onto a chair in the middle of the ring, which was brought in earlier from Shinsuke, which Charles had taken out of his hand. And then that led to the poison mist debacle. But yeah, Knight hitting the BFT onto the chair would go for the cover on Shinsuke. Another ref would come on down to the ring, charge in, and would count the 3 count in order to crown LA Knight as the brand new United States champion. And once again, now he's a 2-time US title winner. So yeah, I think, what was it this week? We had Raw, we had Rhea Ripley losing to Io Sky, so brand new champion crowned there. NXT, Shawn Spears being crowned the new NXT North American champion in the main event. And then we had SmackDown in the main event, LA Knight defeating Shinsuke for the United States Championship. So 3 shows in a row from WWE where the main events are crowned new champions. It's quite an interesting week, right? I think going into WrestleMania, I would assume that no one's really going to lose their titles. But actually, the landscape's starting to change, which is quite interesting. So yeah, this match was pretty fun, though. I quite enjoyed it. I am kind of disappointed about how Shinsuke's reign ended in the end. It seems to be the the norm with Shinsuke's title runs. I just wish they had stuff that was better for him. I'm sure you'll definitely agree with this, Nick, in a minute, and you'll probably have a lot more to say about it. But yeah, I feel like Shinsuke does deserve better than what he got. I think his gimmick was tremendous, and they somehow dropped the ball and just let it fizzle out, which is just absolutely crazy to me. But yeah, LA Knight back on top again. Brand new United champion to end SmackDown. WrestleMania is starting to look a little different. But what did you think of all these segments here, Nick, in terms of the brawl between Jacob and Braun? Chelsea Green retaining, Drew defeating Jimmy, and then that feud with Damian Priest kicking off. Well, I guess resuming. And then, unfortunately for yourself, LA Knight beating Shinsuke to win the US title.
Yeah, the Braun versus Solo match, I thought, continuing that, I love the back and forth between them and Jacob in particular. It feels like this kind of the whole point of all this is to just further drive a wedge in between Jacob and Solo. It feels like that's where they're going here. In terms of where Braun falls into this, having and I do agree with you. I do believe the match was cut short to interference once Jacob showed up. But it feels like the overall takeaway, aside from the wedge between Jacob and Solo always interfering with each other, I'm sure that will continue to be the case. But Braun, walking away as the last man standing here after throwing Jacob to the table, of course, that was great. The outside the ring stuff between them was great. I'm not 100% sure where Braun falls into this, but it feels like Jacob is probably the last person on the roster I would want to have a debt owed to. He's certainly not going to allow that to stand for long, I would imagine. So I'm assuming we'll see that continue somehow as well. But it feels like the main story there would probably still be Jacob and Solo at come Mania. But yeah, that was a great segment, and yeah, nice to see Braun standing tall for once there. Chelsea Green versus Michin. Yeah, I feel like this was a decent match. Interesting notes here that BFAB kind of ran in to try to nullify Piper Niven. And as you mentioned, Piper was really selling that match earlier as if it were, like 30 seconds before this one. Yeah, a bit oversell perhaps. But interesting that BFAB was interfering here, and she kind of made a stand against Charlotte earlier in the night, which I think it's safe to say that was a bit out of nowhere. But no complaints from me. I do like BFAB, and I feel like she is better than what she gets portrayed as. At least she has potential. And then I guess decided to get involved here too. So maybe, that was a bit interesting. But regardless, and obviously Chelsea getting the win with the help of returning Alba Fire. As I assume, as you mentioned, that she'll be a part of Chelsea's cabinet or whatever. And it was a hell of a Canadian destroyer, by the way. And yeah, Chelsea gets the win to retain. I feel like the crowd really underreacted to that. I don't know if just because of how little that they've seen of her on Maine, I guess. Maybe they just don't care about her that much. But I was marking a bit. I thought that was a great return. It was good to see her get back on screen after the breakup of her team. So yeah, I think this is a great spot for her. I think anytime we can get her back on TV, and I think it only makes Chelsea stronger in the long run. And so I think, to overcome Piper and Alba Fire, along with Chelsea's tactics, I think someone has their hands full. And so I think if they play this right, whoever it is ends up beating Chelsea Green for that title is certainly going to have their hands full, and is going to come out looking like an extreme babyface because of it. So yeah, they're setting that up quite nicely. I don't know how soon that's going to be, but yeah, glad to see Alba Fire back on TV. Cody Rhodes promo, yeah. The last bit saying, if you want some, come get some. I thought that was a great bit, and obviously, as you mentioned, very, very intense, which is good. As you kind of alluded to, it will be hard to have him build this feud. I have no idea when Cena's next official appearance is going to be, but I think we need to get someone in there because he can only cut promos every week for so long. We still have over a month to build, so either that means the final boss comes back or something, or John wants to cut some video promos. I think that needs to be done eventually too, within a week or two at most. Um, it's going to be hard to build a promo with one guy, I think, is the main takeaway. And as you mentioned, obviously, John did his part at Elimination Chamber, but eventually, one-sided promos aren't going to keep us invested. So certainly need to strike while the iron's hot and do something else other than the one-sided promos. So, Cody can cut a promo, but I think you've mentioned especially that don't love his promos. So I think that even holds more true. That we need to get something else going at some point. So hopefully by this time next week, we've seen something else to kind of further that. Cody coming in every week and doing that just isn't going to quite cut it, in my opinion. Drew McIntyre and Jimmy Uso. Yeah, right man won this time. Crazy that he didn't the first time. As you mentioned, pretty dominant performance from Drew. Him going back to deal some more damage, getting interrupted by Damian Priest. The notes I have are simply meh. I think we're on the same page there. Unfortunately, we thought this was the case between them. We thought this was the Mania match we're getting, and just I don't know. It's missing something. Obviously, we are both huge fans of Drew. I am not a huge fan of Damian. I don't know. I liked him better as a heel than I do a face. That's for sure. So, they have over a month to make this interesting. We'll see what they can do, I guess, and we'll go from there. Shinsuke versus LA Knight, the rematch without interference this time. I love the match. The finish especially was great. The elephant in the room being another failed Shinsuke title reign, unfortunately. Him winning it, and I won't go off too much here, but him winning it was a nice surprise. Bringing him back as a heel character, and I feel like he works better as a heel than he does a face, but I feel like he is one of those few people that can do both really well. Especially given that he doesn't speak very good English. So I think that's a testament to his character work and his character overall. For whatever reason, every time he gets a title on him, everything that he's working on appears to be dropped. So I know that's no fault of Shinsuke, and I'm sure most people know that as well. But yeah, for whatever reason, that's what happened. And I know he's had some family issues behind the scenes, and so if that plays a part, it just feels like it's too coincidental to be just as failed as his last title reign was. So, but LA Knight is obviously still over. I would argue that if this was going to be the reign that he lost his title for in the first place, then it probably wasn't worth it. It probably wasn't worth it getting Shinsuke involved, anyways. So with that, I think it opens up a whole new slate of challengers. So we'll see. I think LA Knight is still pretty over. I don't think he's quite as over as he was at one time, because they kind of waited a little too long, as WWE tends to do. But I still think he's plenty over. That this reign will be a good one as well, and we'll see where he goes from here and who ends up being his challenger or challengers for Mania. So hopefully we see another good reign out of LA Knight. But yeah, overall, I felt like you mentioned the title changes changing after each show this week, and then last week we had Raw as well with the women's tag team titles. It certainly makes you pay more attention to the weekly shows. I think in the grand scheme of things over the last decade, a title match on a weekly show, yeah, okay, because we knew it wouldn't be a clean finish or something would happen, or someone, whoever the champion was, would retain, and it really wasn't worth your time. But I think over the last week and a half, and I wish I had a stat for this, because it does feel like we've seen a lot of title changes recently. And I think personally that's great. I think it makes people more involved in the weekly shows. I would argue too, and I think you kind of mentioned too, or alluded to that doing these so close to Mania is kind of interesting. Um, but regardless, I think if it makes more people tune into the weekly shows, I think that's great. And I'm all for more frequent title changes. I will say that there was an era where we did that way too much, and that no one's title reign felt relevant or important. And so I think a happy balance in between there. But if you were to ask me, I prefer the shorter ones over the longer ones. I personally don't have an interest in several year title reigns. I think it should be very few and far between. And so I think, as long as our title reigns are lasting at least a few months each, I think that's good. And I'm all for that. I think it makes the title matches themselves more interesting. And it keeps us invested on a weekly basis to those matches. So, but yeah, overall, yeah, I think Raw definitely won this week in terms of which show was best. But overall, it felt like outside of Raw that NXT and SmackDown kind of took a step back from where we were last few weeks. But everything is continuing, and we have a new title holder for the U.S. Championship. So, yeah, looking forward to see what next week holds. We have the Raw and NXT in Madison Square Garden, so I'm sure that'll be a great time. But yeah, overall, just excited for the build still, and I think I give SmackDown a 7 out of 10. It was good, no problems with it. Just not quite to the level of what we've been seeing over the last few weeks.
Yeah, I don't really disagree with anything you just said there. I think when it comes to the overall quality of the product recently, I think Raw definitely does take the the best show for this week. Yeah, SmackDown has maybe struggled a little bit recently. I think this was a step in the right direction. Personally, I think I'd give this one an 8 out of 10. I just think that there was a lot of good things on this show, and I was a bit more interested as to a lot more of the segments here. I think Alba Fire returning, and that was a surprise. Being her being involved in the match. Drew McIntyre actually winning a match. That's always something that I'm going to be happy with. LA Knight dethroning Shinsuke. Yep, obviously we can look at that in two ways. Maybe a little bit disappointing because of Shinsuke's reign, but maybe positiveness with LA Knight taking the title into WrestleMania. I'm quite happy about that. And then, yeah, I think, the tag team division just continues to excel. I think there are a lot of good things happening on SmackDown, but, yeah, there are some things that are still a little bit here or there, do need to be sort of rectified a little bit. And I think they are making steps in the right direction to do that, but ultimately Drew and Damian feuding is just something I'm never going to recover from. But yeah, 8 out of 10 I think it's good. But yeah, I think you made some great points about the championships, and the reign, the length of the reigns. I think if we can have sort of some surprises every now and then, not like a year-long title reign or whatever, I think that does make for a better product because it adds that shock factor. So if you have a year-long reign, you're not going to have moments like Io Sky winning against Rhea Ripley. You're not going to have LA Knight beating Shinsuke Nakamura here, even though the title reign wasn't particularly enthralling. But maybe they would have worked on it and got it and made it better if they'd given it a bit more time. I don't know, but yeah, there's lots of questions that you can take from these. But I think with WrestleMania getting very close, and the fact that they're not scared to change champions, I quite like that. I think it's it like you said, it makes keeping up with the weekly shows a lot more important and a lot more relevant, which is just what you want from a weekly show. It doesn't need to be filler, does it? It needs to be, building into these big events and keeping it relevant for the entire time. Something that you want to watch. But on the back of that, I think there's a good way to end the podcast, the video. So this has basically been everything regarding SmackDown that took place after Elimination Chamber. Thanks to everybody who tuned into this video. If you liked what we're producing here, then please hit a like on the video and please subscribe to our channel. We've got some more content coming out very, very soon, including our reactions to Raw, NXT, and SmackDown for the week coming up next. And then, yeah, let us know in the comments if you're liking what we're putting out here. We'd love to hear some feedback from everybody. We'll stay tuned now for our next one, which is going to be Raw Recap. That's coming up on Tuesday. That we'll be putting that one out. So we'll see you guys in the next one. This has been The Push with Nick and KP, and we'll see you again soon, everyone. Thank you, and goodbye.